Today's guest is Brigham Dallas. He is so amazing and he's traveled so many places. He's gone to Quebec. He might call it something different for a missionary trip. He spent some time in Thailand trying to sell worms or selling worms. I think it was accomplishing selling worms.
I did sell worms.
Dancing in Spain, now currently traveling and living abroad with his hottie of a wife, Emma.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk with Brigham Dallas today. Brigham, thanks for being on the interview today.
I feel so privileged to be here with you, Natasha. Thanks for having me.
Yay! So I'm not even quite sure where to start because I feel like you have such an amazing life and experience, not just traveling and living abroad, but like your businesses, all of your friends. But I guess where I would like to start is like, did you have this life planned out? Like, did you always know you'd go abroad or that you'd be good at languages?
Like, do travelers in general typically have like a set plan? I feel like that's like the the appeal of traveling is like I'm gonna just go abroad and wing it. Like sure, there's the vacationer that's gonna have like an itinerary and like everything planned out, but I think the true traveler is like that's not you, right? Like the traveler is like, I'm gonna go to Brazil. I don't know anything about Brazil. It's gonna be fun learning when I get out there. Like I don't have a plan, and I don't think I ever would have a plan. Have you felt that way, Natasha?
Yeah, definitely. Most of the times that I've left or gone somewhere, it was definitely on a whim, maybe like 2 months notice before I did something and gone. I mean, now I think I've thought about it a lot more before taking my next step. But yeah, all my other experiences were very like whimsical.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's how it is for me.
So you did your mission in, you can say Quebec.
Oh yeah, yeah. The French people, we say Quebec, Quebecois.
I don't
Yeah,
even
so
remember what you just said. Quebec, Quebec.
Quebec,
Gotcha.
Quebec.
Quebec.
Yeah, I think the English is Quebec. Um, that was a cool experience because I spent 8 weeks in the United States learning French and learning just basic missionary things. And then they taught Parisian French, which is the best way I could describe the difference between a French from Paris and a French from like Canada is like the French from Canada sound like women when they speak French. The women in Canada sound like men when they speak French. Like it's a very country like. Oh geez, I feel like you're gonna have some Quebecois people like calling me after and be like, "Oh, you said this about my language." Like, but yeah, it's a very different feel to the way the language. It's not. It doesn't have that pretty fluent edge to the Quebecois French. It's more of like a rougher, um, like dialect. And I got out there, and I got to be honest, I didn't understand a thing. 2 months and nothing. Like when I got out there, but I just continued speaking French. Like I just stayed with it, like all day, every day, until I could speak to people. It took about 6 months to get to a point where I was conversational.
Was that the first language that you've learned other than English, or had you taken
Yeah,
classes? Really?
never. Yeah, I was the first one. I didn't know any other. Yeah, I couldn't speak anything before that. I was so naive, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but like growing up in a small town, like a country town in like South Carolina with like no experience or influence anywhere, I had the option of learning Spanish, and I was like, nah, man, if those immigrants come to my country, they're gonna learn my language. I mean, that's kind of how I felt. Like, and it's so like I feel embarrassed saying that, but that's yeah. And so I felt so naive as like I was just so naive. I didn't even think about it. And then I started traveling, and like one of the places that opened my eyes the most, like I went to Cuba, and I learned like how like poor these people were, and how they came to the United States and had like nothing, and they came just to have a better life and have freedom and opportunity that they would never have in their country. And I'm like, man, like I respect that like so much, like it's like they've done incredible things. Like I feel so stupid to have thought that way. Like I wish I spoke Spanish better. Like I really wish I spoke Spanish better. So my perspective as I've gotten older and traveled more has completely changed.
And that was before or after Quebec?
Quebec started it, right? Like Quebec was
Yeah.
like, oh, like it's Canada, so it's not like that different from America, but they have like baguettes that are cheap, so it wasn't, and they speak a different language. So like it started to open
Yeah.
my mind to cultures, but it wasn't until I started hitting the road like heavy. Like I did 4 years of like 6 to 9 months a year just living out of a backpack and traveling, and that opened my eyes a lot. That changed me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, maybe speak on that because that's definitely one of my questions is how has it affected you as a person and has it changed, your life path and in any certain way?
Yeah, like 100%. And like I can speak about different times and like what it has done for me at different times in my life. Um, but I'll say this to anybody thinking about making that jump. Like it was honestly the best decision I ever made in my life was just traveling. As a college student, the goal of it was just see the world. Like I don't know anything about the world. I want to see how people live, like how things are outside of this life. And I came from a structured high school. I went to the Air Force Academy, which is arguably one of the most structured schools in the world. It's a military academy, and it's like your life is military. 2 years of that, 2 years of a mission, which is you wake up every day at 6:30, you go to bed every day at 10:30. You're constantly with a companion, like highly structured. Your life is just basically for my entire childhood up until this time just dictated for me, right? So I'm in this like intense mode of like gotta go 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 all the time, and I just needed a break, right? So I moved to Thailand and I live in a bungalow. And Thai people, like the difference between like a vacation type traveling and when you live somewhere is like you get influenced by the people. And I just remember like they have a way of just like not letting things affect them. Like
Mm.
for example, you could be in your bungalow and it could be like flooded, like a foot of water, and you're like, "Yo, there's a foot of water in my bungalow. Everything is wet. I am like dying. I'm gonna drown in this thing." And the people like in this huge emergency would be like, "Oh, okay. Well, I will come right now and I will help you with that." And then just so calm. Like it chilled me out. Like I was so intense all the time, and then Thailand just like chilled me out. And I think at the academy, like everything was like you were ranked on physical fitness, your academic, your military, and then your social leadership. So like your whole life was competitive. And you get out there and it's like, dude, nobody cares how much money you have. Like you're in a t-shirt every day because it's the only thing you wear. Like nobody cares what you do for a living. Like you just realize like there's much more that's important than just being better than everybody else. So it chilled me out so much. Like it was like the best thing for me at that time. um, yeah, and then later on, um, you know I lived out of this backpack for like 4 years, and I was super like at first super lonely, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
have you ever had that when you're traveling? Like were you ever just, I mean, you talk to everyone, you're so social, but you
Yeah,
ever
but
felt lonely?
still, yeah. I mean, even I traveled, with my sister. I've always had a companion, but even then, sometimes it was lonely. Like when I was in China, I didn't know the language, so
Yeah.
all I had was my sister. It was very like, I mean, and my sister and like the friends that she had already made. So like I felt like nothing was my own, and I don't know. It was really hard.
Did you find, for me, it was like 3 months out. Did you hit that point? Was that like when it hit for you?
Oh, I mean, for me, it was immediately because it was culture shock. I was going through a breakup. Like,
Oh,
I didn't know the language. It was very immediately. I was like, what did I do?
yeah. Like I think in the beginning it was just like I'm in a foreign country. This is amazing. And then once like routine starts to hit in, and people say it's about 3 months out. Dude, I was just checking Facebook all day. I'm like, what is this person doing?
Really?
All my friends. I'm like, man, like I could be having a burger, but instead, like I can't get a good pizza out here in Thailand. Like these are stupid things, but like you just kind of miss home. You just kind of miss being. And then when you get home and like everyone's just like normal, you're like what was I thinking? Like I want to go back
Yeah.
out now. um, but the for me, so what I started doing, I started dancing, and dancing was a way for me to make friends. It was a way to meet people, and it was something to occupy the time. When there was those long dry periods. So I started dancing, and I spent 6 months in the Canary Islands. I danced with 3 months with the world champions in Barcelona. Anyway, so dancing became my passion, and it happened because of traveling. Dancing became the way that I got through like my hardest breakups. Like, so I had 2 really serious relationships, and both times when they didn't work out, I just left and I moved to the Canary Islands again, and I just threw myself in dancing until I healed. So like traveling was my way of healing. And then eventually I met my wife dancing. So like without traveling, I wouldn't have met the most amazing girl ever, like my wife. So
or one of your really good friends, me, who you've also met dancing.
I've never met you. I never would have met Allie. Like my family, you guys are so close to me.
Isn't that amazing? So traveling gave you that. It sounds like traveling also kind of let you know your identity, like that your identity, I guess, is not necessarily like your ranking or what skills you have.
It stopped being competitive. It stopped being. It chilled me out a lot. I was more competitive at the time. It stopped being competitive and became more about finding like joy in life. And that mentality has like shaped the way I do business, because I'm an entrepreneur. I run multiple businesses, and most entrepreneurs work around the clock. They're constantly working, and somehow I've figured out a way to work about 25 hours a week, and that seems perfect for me. I don't want to work more than 25 hours a week. Even if I were to make a lot more money, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's because of traveling that I found that like I'm not solving for money, I'm solving for happiness. And that mentality is a complete shift. And I'm like so happy I did that. But it came from traveling.
So what made you want to become an entrepreneur? Was it that you wanted to have be able to like live abroad and be able to work anywhere, and so you just kind of fell into that entrepreneur position, or was it something that you kind of always wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, like I've always, I think that's just a driving side. Like I always want to be an entrepreneur. I never thought, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I've always just wanted to own businesses. Like even as a kid, I can't think of a time in my life where I haven't had a business that I was like just excited about. Like it genuinely makes me excited to have businesses. That being said, have you ever heard like the term like high school dropout millionaire? You ever heard of those kind of people? Yeah, like it's kind of oh yeah, I dropped out of high school, became a millionaire. I mean, it's not that often. Usually they're working at McDonald's, but you got the one in the wilds that like make it big. And I think about that, and what allows that to happen is the fact that they dropped out of high school. Like, you don't have a choice at that point. You either work at McDonald's or you figure it out on your own, right? And that was kind of the predicament that I was in. Like, I started this dumb, cheap worm website that you had mentioned earlier, where I was selling fishing worms online. I was making usually $1,000 to $1,500 a month,
which is crazy still.
Yeah, like how, right? Like it's awesome. And that was enough to live very well in Thailand, right? So that's why I moved to Thailand. It's cheap. I can live abroad. I can try this new lifestyle. Yeah, and so living in Thailand, like I didn't have a choice, right? Like it was either figure out how to make businesses work online or pick coconuts. And that didn't sound too appealing or like make me money, right? So like I needed to figure out this business side of things. So that was one thing, was like, sink or swim. And the second was I had all the free time in the world. And like Natasha, you were talking about this earlier, like, with your friends, like you left your friends at home, you just had your sister. Like the less glamorous side about traveling, and you probably can talk on this for a minute, but like it's like you don't have anything to do sometimes. Like you got nothing going on. You've got no dance class, you got no schedule with friends, no hangouts, like no movies, because you're living in China. So like you have all the free time in the world, and I used it to start businesses.
Yeah, I didn't get there. I never was that far when I was abroad. It wasn't until I came home that I fell into that entrepreneurial
Yeah.
spirit. More so I was like what do I do? What am I good for? What are my skills? Because I didn't never feel like I had skills. I felt like I needed a hard skill. I mean, when I came back, I realized that being able to talk to people is a skill, and that I can sell things. And um, later, I've become the entrepreneur, like had the entrepreneur mindset. But I think it was pretty great that for you, you took that downtime and took it seriously.
Yeah, I think just curiosity was the biggest thing. Like these things like genuinely interested me. Like how do I sell things online? It's like this idea that you can automate, like you can go to sleep and wake up and have money in your bank account because you sold a product while you were sleeping. That blows my mind. It's so cool. I like love it. So yeah, I think that's what drove me more.
So you said that you were abroad for about 4 years living in your backpack. What was the point of coming back to the US?
Uh, so every year I would do 6 to 9 months, and then I'd come back for about 6 months, and that's what the schedule would look like. And so, I'd get out there, I'd start traveling, and then I think maybe I want to work on school a little bit. I'd come back, I'd do 1 or 2 semesters, and I'd be like, I got it, this isn't for me, and I'd go back out. It was actually funny. The last year, which brought me back to the States, like for more anchored in the States, I met a girl in Paris. I was living in the Canary Islands, and I was way more infatuated with her than she was with me. And we would talk every week on Skype, and we would, have our like Skype hangouts, and we liked each other. Um, and she moves back to the University of Utah, and it was like Christmas time. And so I said to myself, like I'm gonna try to make this work. So I moved back to like Utah. I moved up into Salt Lake. I'm like right by where she lives. And dude, she like blew me off within 1 week. Like I was just
No
like her
way.
friend abroad. Like that was basically what it was. Yeah, she had no interest in me after like a week of being back. And like then I was like, dude, this sucks. Like I can't. I mean, I didn't tell her this, so if she ever listens to this would still be a shock for her. But I like literally just came back to the States hoping to make it work with this girl. And yeah, it was just stupid, really. Like I was just like up there, coldest months of the year, living in Utah. I didn't ski at the time, and it was just like, oh man, what am I doing? But one thing led to another. I found like connections and started making things work in the States, and I ended up moving down to Arizona, which is where we became friends and we danced and hung out, and the rest is history.
So, for you, what would you say are the biggest challenges? I know you've talked about, loneliness a little bit. What would you say the other biggest challenges are about traveling and living abroad?
Okay, so a couple of things. Like I think money is the hardest one for most people. We're not made of like, rich parents or thousands of dollars. Like, granted, now when we travel, like I look back the past 2 or 3 months, like I haven't felt that stress. But I'm like 33. It's a different, and I've got things bringing me income while I'm like traveling. When I was 22 to 26, my budget was always less than $2,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and I could live really comfortably on about 1,500 a month. And when you think about it, you have to plan that accordingly. So, and here's how it breaks down. Going to a country, you buy a one-way ticket. Now, one-way ticket is going to cost $300 to $600, right? Because you're going to get some great deal on it, and you're going to spend 20 hours in the airport. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's cheap. And you get to the country, so you spent that, 500. Take that divided by 3. So let's say you spent 600. That's $200 of the month per month for 3 months. You're not going to take a lot of flights at this point. You're living basically in that location. You find a house to rent or a room to rent. If you're living in Spain, there's like websites that you can go on that like are like they're like Airbnb for like semi long term. You can find that just about anywhere. So you find a semi long term rent in a place, and you try to do cool stuff on the weekends and you work during the week. So it's not like this lifestyle of like you're just going place after place after place, constantly doing vacation stuff, right? So you've got to, in a small time period, assimilate into a culture. That's challenging. It can't just all be about fun and games, Disney World for 3 months. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to find life. You've got to find life. And so the challenge with this, and I'll give this as some advice, is that if you don't find purpose while you're traveling, you become miserable. Like, miserable. You've got to find your purpose.
Yeah.
And did you have, you're shaking your head.
Yes, I struggled with that in many times abroad. Yep.
What did you struggle with that? Like, just like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. The first time when I went to China, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what is my purpose? I don't really like being an English teacher. I never really liked Chinese. Granted, now I really do. But I didn't really have a purpose. Neither did I have. I mean, now I'm Christian and I believe in Christ, thanks to you. A lot of it. But I didn't have any meaning in my life, I felt like. And so, when I went to Thailand as well, that was the same thing. I was like, who am I? Like, what do I offer to the world? Like, what is the purpose of being abroad other than, just being here and experiencing something new?
Yeah. Yeah, which is why people think they want to travel. It's like, oh, I want to experience some new cultures and stuff. That's what I thought. But I didn't really realize, you don't really realize the appeal because it's hard. Like, hard things make you grow. And traveling is hard. It's really hard. And if people tell you elsewise, like you see these pictures on Facebook and you're like, Brigham, like you're living like the craziest, coolest life ever. And yeah, there's some cool stuff. Like in the past week, I've been in a place that's only exists one place in the world. I went hang gliding. I've like climbed the Jesus statue in Rio. Like this is all in like 1 week, and I've met some cool people. But on the other hand, like I've also been on 3 flights in a week, and I've lived out of a hotel room and changed hotels 3 times in a week. And I've done this for months.
Yeah.
I own everything I use is in one backpack. And like I have to wash my clothes in the sink every other night. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
it's not all just pretty. And I think, and this is the advice I would give people, I come down to it. You have got to make it your mission to find your purpose quickly while you're traveling. And if you can do that, you're going to love it. And I'd like to just talk on that for a second. You cool with like just talking about some of my purposes?
Yeah.
Every time I go to a country, which is cool, it's because you have a deadline. It's like 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. I always had a goal. And it was one of those goals where I said to myself, how can this goal change me for my life? Not just like help me in the next couple months feel good, but like what is a life-changing goal? And I'll give you some examples of this. Early on, it was educational. How do I code? How do I learn how to do YouTube videos? How do I do SEO? How do I build websites? This was like the focus of like 22 to 24. How do I make some money? I'm broke. I'm broker than the 10 Commandments. Help me make some money, And then they became more social. So then it became, how do I learn skills that make me happy, like dancing? I want to become like one of the best dancers in the world. Like, no, it wasn't a competitive thing. I just want to dance in a way that I can express myself and like just really like make other people feel good when I dance with them. That was more it for me. I wanted to learn Spanish. And so one trip I took, I asked all my Mexican friends who, you don't speak any Spanish, like Mexicans have an accent, like, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they have a very, like, a Mexican when he walks in the room by his accent. And because we play soccer together, it's like all my buddies. I was like, what if you could do like think of a British accent in English, like Queen's English? Where do I go? Like what Spanish accent is like the best? And I didn't know anything about Spanish. And they all were like, dude, go to Argentina or go to Colombia. That's like a sexy accent, So I didn't know Spanish, and I moved to Colombia for 2 months alone, and just like my mission, went on the street 8 hours a day and freaking just spoke Spanish to people. And I became conversational after that, and I used it for the rest of my life. It's awesome. And then right now I'm traveling with my wife, which is cool. And it's a very different, unique experience because like I'm seeing her go through some of the things I went through about finding purpose and like learning to do like she's has this right now. But our goal coming on this trip was like, dude, the first year of marriage is always the hardest, right? Like that's what everyone says. So how do we focus on working on our relationship and making this like the foundation to like push us to the next level? That's what this trip was about for us. And we hired a relationship coach, which we meet with every other week. Yeah, it's been awesome. And we talk about things like for our future, our kids, and we have time where we're just like sitting on a beach watching a sunset and we're like, dude, what do you think about raising a kid in another country? Or what about learning languages? How about this poverty we see on the streets? Like we had a conversation today. I was like, I don't want my kids going to Disney World. Like I want my kids seeing that when we talk about the land of opportunity, like it really means like you can go out and do whatever you want. Like people here, this kid on the street was selling me gum today. He was like 10 years old. You give him like 15 bucks. I felt so bad for him. And I was like, it doesn't matter how smart he is. He's not going to have an opportunity like he would have in the States unless he gets super lucky, you know? So it's always about finding purpose.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying about the States, would you say that there's things that other places can't offer that our country does offer, like that you just couldn't do without?
Like, okay, so living wise, you're saying like, hey, like what would I give up if I lived abroad? You're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, freak. There are some amazing things about living in the States. Like, you don't worry about corruption. And like, keep in mind, I'm gonna say this, and like, there's gonna be somebody that's gonna be like, we have corruption in the States, Brigham. Like, okay, you're right. We have corruption in the States. We have flawed politicians, and I don't want to make this a political thing, but to the extent that like the best job in Brazil is a politician, like, and politicians are making like 10 to 20,000 reais when the average salary is like 2,000 to 3,000. Like that's corrupt, right? Like even just on a general basic level, and they make a lot more from the sweet deals they make, right? That's corruption, and people live way poor because of that corruption. Like, um, so what can I live without? You know, on a general level, like even if you had a lot of money overseas, I think your roads are not going to be as nice, infrastructure. The cars are not going to be as nice. And if you're driving a nice car, you're not going to feel safe because they know you're rich, right? Um, your internet is surprisingly fast enough no matter where I go. Like I don't really have this, like even in third world like areas, like Thailand, I'm living on an island and I got a Wi-Fi connection. I can have a Skype call with people. It's never an issue. Um, your choices of food become limited. Like, dude, you can go to Chinatown and get amazing stuff in the States, right? Like, but you can't always, like here in Brazil, I can't go find any type of food that I want at any time of night, right? You know, there's less choices. Again, it depends where you're at, right? Like Brazil's so big, but in a small city, you're not going to get all the choices. Yeah, overall though, I think from what like home is always home. Home for me is the United States. But what I give up, I gain tenfold by the other character developments that have happened through the years from traveling.
How do you feel about people that don't ever leave where they grew up?
Yeah, my brother is still living in South Carolina. Grew up in South Carolina, live in South Carolina, and probably will, you know, for the large foreseeable future. I went to my high school reunion, and everybody's still in that small town South Carolina for the most part. Um, you're comfortable, so that's good. You know, you're probably happy, and if happiness is the goal of life, then that's good too. Um, I just don't think your lens is opened enough. Personal opinion, you know. I just think like you look at somebody, for example, here's a good example from my perspective. I watched Cuba Libre, and then I went to Cuba and I saw how people lived out there. And immediately my respect for Cubans, first generations in the United States, went up like tenfold, right? Like you see these people that come with nothing and they're like, I gotta make it here. And I think I like am excited to meet these people and I'm excited to talk to them and I have respect for them. You know, my brother, Sean, amazing kid, super nice to everybody. You've met him,
Yeah.
good kid. But I don't think he's gonna look at a Cuban the same way. He's gonna just look at him as a foreigner. And that's okay. But I don't think that rich relationship could develop to the same level as somebody who has lived or visited that country.
Yeah, like our perspectives and understandings of people can grow when we have those experiences.
Yeah, and I think that same example could be applied to a lot of countries. You could say that for Thai people. Okay, here's a great example, and I bet you've seen this too. I used to think that Chinese people were all quiet, all of them were good at math, and all of them could play the piano. Like it's like again, South Carolina, small town thing. And then I moved to China and I lived there for 2 months and I'm like on the streets and people are roller skating, they're dancing, they're socializing, they're doing all this crazy cool stuff and they're loud. They're loud. And I'm like shocked. I thought all Chinese people were quiet. And then I'm the quiet one because I can't speak to anybody because this language is so foreign. I'm like shy, right? And I'm thinking in my head, maybe Chinese people aren't shy because they're shy. Maybe they're just shy because it's such a hard language to go from Chinese to English, like it is for me to go from English to Chinese,
Yeah.
I would have never made that connection.
Another perspective shift, right?
Yeah. Have you had that?
Well, when I went there, I guess I was just expecting pandas and more nature. I was like pandas and nature. I don't know. I for some reason I never had really heard much about China other than like pandas. And so
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting like big cities or anything like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was
their
definitely
cities are really developed.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess, what do you think about meeting other travelers?
So this is what I've been most excited about in traveling is like, okay, I love that you asked that question. There's a certain type of person that travels and you get it, right? Like the person who's willing to take risk is the person who's willing to travel. And those
Mm-hmm.
people are the coolest people. Like some of my closest friends are travelers for that reason. Like they're easygoing, they're like typically more carefree because they're willing to travel and like give up, a lot of the comforts of home to go do something like noble and awesome. Um, and like you might say that like, oh yeah, like I play soccer, so soccer people are the coolest people. I don't think about that with other people, other things, but like specifically, travelers are willing to take risks to enjoy something greater in life. Like, and I think that's an identity I've seen throughout the world, and I am super fascinated and excited to meet not just like the week-long travelers, but the to be gone for a couple of months kind of people. Like those are the coolest people in the world, and I learned so much from them. I love meeting people like that. Also, anecdotally, because of COVID, this has been the hardest thing for me. It's like we haven't had a traveler experience with another traveler in like over a month. Like I
Mm-hmm.
haven't met anyone in Brazil that speaks English and it's like their first language. I was telling you before the podcast started, like today was the first day in 5 weeks. We have sat down with another person who was here in Brazil that was like speaking English, and it was a PhD student here.
It's
Yeah,
definitely a different experience,
crazy.
traveling at this time, I'm sure.
It's crazy different. Like shockingly, I thought more people would do it. I knew people are not traveling right now because it's a pandemic, but I thought there'd be at least some people. Like I'm talking like most of our tour guys who like they live with tourism. They're like I haven't seen an American since the pandemic started, and that's been 5 or 6 months. Crazy. Yeah.
What other things have changed, or what other hoops have you gone through, because the pandemic?
Yeah. So I check almost religiously I check COVID cases per day in countries, and I check Kayak's like travel website to see what countries have opened up. Because we're supposed to be traveling for 6 months, and so it's like I would love for another South American country to open up, and we'd just like hop over to Argentina or Chile or something, you know. But we can't right now because of the pandemic. And I also check where I need to have a COVID test. It's so painful to get one of these. You know, it's so nice coming to Brazil and not needing one.
Did you have to get a certain type of health insurance before getting there?
Yeah, basically every country's going to require that, and like even if they didn't, you're smart to get health insurance when you're traveling. It's like I go through Amex. You don't have to have an Amex to get it, and this time it was I want to say $40 for like 2 months, you know, and it covers all your medical expenses.
Really? Because the one that I was looking up for Costa Rica was like $350 a person a month.
Check out Amex. Check out Amex travel insurance. Yeah, it's super cheap. But I also because like I know people I've heard like I ask everybody like, by the way, so there's some things you want to do like when you're traveling. It's like figure out how safe the place is. And Brazil is notorious for not being safe.
Yeah.
So I ask everyone, I'm like, hey, you've lived here a long time. Like, have you been robbed? And like most people are like, yeah, you know, I've had my phone stolen. I've had, you know. So I got insurance from Amex for $500 like lost items stealing. But there's a freaking catch. Like it's only if it's out of your hotel room. And like when do you ever leave your phone in your hotel room, you know?
So wait, did you find out the catch after? Did you have something stolen?
Yes, I had something stolen. I had my headphones stolen. My $250 AirPod Pros were stolen.
No way.
And that sucks because they're not trackable. Like it's not like an iPhone where you can like, I lost my iPhone, like no one can use it. Like you can literally just program that to any other computer, you know, or phone. Yeah, it sucks big time. It was in Rio.
And they were like taken out of your ears or just like out of a bag or off the counter?
Yeah, this little kid came up and he was like, hey, do you want chicle, gum? And I was like, oh, sure. And then he grabs them and then runs away. I'm just kidding. It was like that.
Oh, you got me.
No, I'm freaking like I only, with important things like passports and these kind of things, I only put them in one spot. So it only goes in one place in my bag or it's in my pocket. And I think I sat down, it fell into the chair. I went up to pay for my like car rental at the time, and by the time I got back to my chair, they were stolen. And I looked around. I hadn't even left the place yet, and like, hey, these were here. Can we check the cameras? And they're like, oh, we don't have access. Sao Paulo has it. Oh. Anyway, they were stolen. Yeah. So
well, yeah,
like it's like, oh, go buy a new one, but you can't because literally iPhone products are twice as expensive in Brazil. So it's $405 instead of $220 on Amazon for the Pros, AirPod Pros.
that's funny. I'm surprised I didn't, because sometimes I ask, oh, do you have headphones that you could use for the interview? That would have just been like salt in your wound, huh? No way.
Yeah, I would have been pretty upset. Like, and every time I think about it, I'm like, I have a 7-hour flight back to like the States without headphones. Like that's like
yeah, because there's not even a headphone jack.
Yeah, seriously. And like okay, like these are first world problems. I'm like grateful that this is a problem I have. Like, you know, I see so many poor people here and I'm like, okay, it's helped my perspective a lot being here, you know. So I have nothing to complain about, if I'm being honest.
Now that you've seen so many different ways of life and, you know, that you're so blessed, do you feel like you have a responsibility to the world at all? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, not to the world. I don't think like that. I do, yeah, I guess you could call it that. I guess you could call it responsibility to the world. What I do is I set aside a charity budget every month, and then I actively work to spend that charity budget. So while we've been traveling, we've put aside a considerable amount actually to just help people here. And we don't even like, because it's like already set aside, like we're spending this much money on like helping people, I don't even think about it. I'm just like, this is great. You know, it's a way to use what I already had set aside. I've already planned for this. I'm not feeling stressed about using this money for that. Whereas before I did a charity budget, I felt really stressed about giving because I never knew if I was going to have enough. And I think that's really important. Like when I'm making $1,500 a month, you know, and I'm poor, like poor, okay. Again, caveat depending on where you are, but like,
Right.
I feel like money is tight. I still could give $5 or $10 a month to help somebody, right? And it doesn't matter how much your charity budget is. It matters that you're consistently practicing that giving lifestyle, you know, and it'll grow over the years. You'll be blessed, and it'll grow. And so here, like, we basically just whenever, like, with as many people as we can, we're giving out. They ask for $10, we're gonna give a $5 tip, you know, and they're reais, not dollars. So like it's, you know, it's a dollar here, a dollar there for us, but it goes a long way here. And yeah, I do feel that responsibility, especially right now when like these like tour guys, for example, haven't had a good tour in like 6 months. Like they're hurting, you know, and that's also hard for us. It's like I am so excited that the food is so cheap. I'm also feeling pretty guilty that I'm eating at this nice restaurant when literally right outside somebody's sleeping on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. Honestly, it's hard for me at least.
Yeah, I definitely when I went to China, one thing that changed was my perspective and like my I always wanted to like do something to help people. I always like working with
Yeah,
people and helping people. But one thing I noticed was like how bad the pollution was in China. And I was like,
yeah,
wow, nobody should have to live like this. And I had come home and studied global studies and sustainability because I really, you know, wanted to make a difference. And then at some point I was like, how can I make a difference? Like I just felt so small, like so in I want to
helpless.
speak Spanish. I want to say useless, I guess.
Yeah,
But I guess like for me, I guess I've just decided, you know, I'm just gonna bring my presence and you know bring a positive presence, and then I think having a way that you can give back to people, whether it's gonna be financially or with time or whatever, I think that's great.
yeah, and like what else has changed for me is like I was even thinking about this, not because of our interview, but because of just life. I'm like, I want my kids to experience this experience and not necessarily the cool places we've been, but the poverty. Like,
Mm,
feel it. Like, maybe we go stay in some not so nice hotels when I have kids. Feel this, because then you'll feel blessed and you'll be much more likely to help others. That changes your perspective right there, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, we talk about in the States, like, okay, we talk about like like HUD housing, you know, like government housing and how bad it is, right? Like that's my perspective when I look at like project housing. I'm like, dang, this kind of sucks. But you know, some of these people are like African refugees or maybe Brazilian refugees. And I look at some of the houses here where like you're like literally washing your clothes in a river. Like that's where we were yesterday. We were at a
yeah,
village where like no electricity and washing clothes in a river. HUD housing, government housing is so much better than that. Like these people are getting iPhones, right? Like they're able
yeah.
to buy them because they can work, even a minimum wage is providing enough to buy an iPhone. Like that's a luxury, right? Like
Crazy. Mm-hmm.
our poor is rich everywhere else in the world that's third
Mm-hmm.
world, you know? And so that has completely changed my mentality. And I think my kids, I don't have kids yet, but I think they need to experience that the hard way without it just being, I don't need to tell them. I don't need to say, oh, it's hard over there. I want to really just, let's go on a vacation. And then,
Vacation.
yeah, have you ever
Yeah.
heard of favela? Because that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things. One thing I want to ask you is for, you know, for the people that are wanting to go or for yourself, how do you know when it's time to go? like it's time to go abroad and do it? You know, maybe you've thought about it for a while. You're like, but you know, is it the time financially? Is it right? You know, how do you decide to go and make that decision?
I used to like really push people because it was like the best decision of my life, like to travel. And I remember there were these two girls I traveled with, Diana and Rachel, and we went to Ireland and the Canary Islands, and like that trip like had a very profound effect on their lives and my life. uh,
You're a cat now.
yeah, like multiple people, and I can see that. And I have like two other students of mine that like they were engaged and they had a breakup and they went together, and that had a huge effect. They were able to heal on this trip and they came back like they were wounded sheep when they left. They were lions when they came back, you know? And I can see it. Like traveling will change people's lives. However, you can't push people to go. Like it has to be internal. I think for me it was like I couldn't get this idea out of my head. I just got to do this. And when you have thoughts like that, I believe that's inspiration, right? Like when that thought just won't leave, like it's like the universe or God or whatever you want to call it is like calling you to do this. And for me, it was like I couldn't stop thinking about living abroad or traveling abroad. Like I need to go. I just followed that prompting.
Gotcha. So, you know, if you're already feeling that desire, maybe you need to just stop holding your desire back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's always, it's never the right time. It's never going to be the right time. I got this job opportunity. You're going to have a job opportunity when you get back. I got this, like, you know, I'm like, I'm single. How am I going to travel if I'm single? I need a partner. No, you'll meet people. Like, I'm a woman. No, you'll meet people when you travel. Like, maybe not right now in COVID, actually. This is actually not a great time in terms of traveling alone, because you might be alone for like a couple of months unless like you like go to hostels or something. Like it's harder right now. But in the most part, you're never alone. You're always with people that are like similar lifestyles, similar way of thinking. So it's never the perfect time, but it's always going to be the perfect experience. Put that on the Hallmark card.
It'll be the perfect experience.
Yeah, it's never the perfect time, but
It'll be the perfect experience. The perfect time for you to learn something and grow, because it's going to be hard, but fun.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, but you're going to find a purpose and you're going to push through it and become something you never knew you were going to become. It's like the best experience you could have.
What other things do you feel like you could share as far as your experience goes with people who are interested in living and working abroad?
Yeah, for sure. I could share a couple of things. One is like what you pack. Is it okay we talk about that? I mean, some people are already abroad, so that might matter. I use nomadic. So a nomadic backpack or a nomadic suitcase, like the carry-on size. That's all you need. Okay. Like that's all you need. Like the nomadic backpack, not the big one, the normal size one. I would pack three. You basically just pack enough clothes for a week, and plan on wearing a couple things more than once. So for me, I would pack 3 pairs of running shorts because I sweat in them, and I need a little bit of time to do laundry between like days, you know. So 3 pairs of running shorts, underwear you can wash quickly in the sink. I would pack 4 shirts, and they're not going to be flashy. One like flashy shirt, meaning like a button up, but most of them, like I got a gray shirt, I got a black shirt. Everything goes with everything. You know, that's the kind of style you want to have, and only 1 week's worth of clothing, because you're going to get on traveling and you're going to find things and add things to your suitcase. So don't pack more than a week. I would pack less than a week if you can. Second thing is always put your passport in the same spot. Always. Third thing is if you're watching this, I would get a converter that is like a world converter that has different like things. And if you're traveling with 2 people, you only need 1 of these. You don't need 2. Okay, so that's big. And then always have a battery pack, one of these like portable battery packs, because you never know when your phone's gonna die. Sign up for T-Mobile because you got free texting and 2 to 3G Wi-Fi anywhere you go. Google Maps, always download the map of the city you're going to ahead of time, so you're not worried about that. What else? I would I would have a good Facebook account. I know some people are against Facebook, but you can look up friends in different cities to see if like you could stay with people and like hang out with them when you're there. And I'm trying to think of this on the spot. As far as like planning goes, people have different approaches to this, but I'm not a planner. What I will do is I will buy a ticket, go to the city, and then meet people who are traveling abroad and say, hey, what were your favorite experiences in this city? Or while I'm abroad, I'll talk to people who have been to other places and say, what were your favorite experiences? And that's how I will plan. Because somebody else has done all the work. You don't have to be the one that does that.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I would say is if you're going to travel, this is whether you're doing 1 week or 2 or like a month, don't plan. If you are a planner, plan like time to do nothing. Like plan at least a day a week where you have nothing planned. For me, every Wednesday is a work day. So from like 8 a.m. till midnight, I schedule all my meetings for the week every Wednesday. And so people are like, when you want to meet? It's Wednesday for me, for the most part, for any kind of work meeting. I'm trying to think about anything else that's good. Be smart about the things you bring. If you're a woman and you're married, don't wear a really big rock, right? Don't bring things you're scared of losing, and don't leave things in places you're scared of losing. I went to China, and the dude I went with made fun of me because I brought my laptop with me. And I was like, dude, this is my life. Like, we were hiking for like 3 days. He's like, why are you hiking with a laptop? And I'm like, if I lost this thing, it's like, I don't have the money to replace like a MacBook. And sure enough, the bag that we left at the house got stolen, and I would have lost my laptop. So.
Wow. So you keep everything on you?
If it's not a place I feel secure, yeah.
Gotcha.
But it's just a backpack, so it's not like I have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your computer, yeah.
Yeah, like the more like okay, like not everything. Like if it's expensive and I'm like scared of losing it, I'm gonna take it with me. Yeah. In an expensive hotel, I'm not worried about that as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, in terms of traveling gear, I would buy the AirPods Pro. Highly recommended. You can literally drown out every sound on an airplane. I would have an iPad. I love reading on iPads. I love taking notes, and I love Netflix because I can download things and watch it later. So definitely have an iPad. And I would take 2 pairs of shoes. I would take 1 pair of tennis shoes or walking shoes. I prefer Sambas. They're like classic. They look good if I go to church in them, but I can also go running in them. And I would take a pair of flip-flops. Those are my go-to shoes for everything. And
what about
instead of having a swimsuit, I would just have those like Nike athletic shorts that I could wear as a swimsuit or to go like running in. So just try to condense things as much as possible.
Yeah.
Seriously, if you're having anything bigger than a backpack, I can't stress this enough. Like, you're taking too many things.
And what about as far as your mentality, especially if you're traveling with somebody?
Oh, yeah. So I've traveled with a lot of people. And the biggest thing that is like hard for travelers is like, if you're not willing to go with the flow, okay? At times you're gonna be tired, you're gonna be hungry, and then you're gonna get cranky. So schedule time for yourself to just get away from people, and also be willing to just go with the flow. Like, you're not always staying in a perfect hotel. Things don't go your way. You go to a city, like we went to Pantanal in the West. We were gonna go on a jaguar safari, super cool area, and the whole countryside is on fire. Like, no tourists. The whole thing's on fire. And it's like one of the worst fires they've had. And like, we had 4 days there, and we could like literally just not leave our hotel room because there was nothing to do. And it was like, it sucked, Things don't always go to plan. And that's okay. Have a good book.
Yeah, just be flexible. Have a book.
Yeah, have a good book. I would say that's like my biggest advice. And then, mentality-wise, have a purpose. have a goal that you want to accomplish that will affect your life for the rest of your life. You have so much free time, and you can literally choose how you use that time. So do something that is really going to affect you forever.
Yeah, I like that. And if you were to advise somebody to stay somewhere for a year, for any of the places you've been, would you recommend any place in particular?
Yeah, I would love to recommend a couple places. One of the easiest is Thailand. I stayed a year there. One of my favorite places is Spain. The food's amazing. There's lots of dancing. The culture is very in style with mine. They love soccer. You know, it's cheap. It's cheaper than some of these other countries. So I would say like there's a big one. Those are my top two. I would recommend to anybody. Spain and specifically the Canary Islands in Spain. It's like an island off the coast of Africa that's part of Spain, island chain. And they're like honestly the most beautiful places in the world. Definitely recommend that. In terms of like traveling experiences, my top experiences, like places I've been, I would check out Turkey. Turkey's like phenomenal. And
I didn't realize you've been there.
Yeah, we're actually trying to go back. Like we're trying to go next week or 2 weeks from now. Right now, it's like it used to be like 4-1, and it's like 7-1 for dollar to lira conversion. So it's like super cheap for Americans. Turkey's high on the list. Spain is high on the list. Ireland is very high for me. There's so much to do there. And then if you're going to go to Asia, if you have $10,000 in a month, go to Tahiti. It's amazing. If you don't have that kind of budget, don't go to Tahiti because you're going to be spending a ton of money. But it's paradise out there.
It's expensive.
Tahiti's like next level expensive. Like, we're not like extravagant livers. Like, we're fine living in like cheaper things. And in 5 weeks there, we spent $12,500.
Whoa.
5 weeks. Yeah, like cheapest place. Like we stayed in a hotel, like a Airbnb. This is already cheaper, with 2 other people staying in a 3-bedroom. So we're just renting a room, and it was $90 a night.
Yeah, like I guess I didn't realize.
Bungalow in Rangiroa, $140 a night. Anytime we go out to dinner, lunch, doesn't matter, it's $25 a meal. So it's $50 a meal. So you figure $120 for your lodging and $100 for your food. You're at $220, and you haven't included any travel, any experiences. That's every day. So it was very expensive for 2 of us to go out to Tahiti area, but honestly, one of the most beautiful places on this planet. I would say check out Burma. Burma's like top of my list as well, because it's when I went there, it was untouched. It wasn't hit by tourists yet, and it was pristine. It was unreal, honestly. Like going up to Bagan and seeing that area, like people wouldn't think about it, but phenomenal. Yeah, so I would recommend those places above. And just to give a little credentials, I've probably been to like 35 countries, if that helps.
Yeah, you're not just naming the only like 7 countries you've been to.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, this one sounds good. This one, no, like, so again, Thailand, Spain, Turkey, Burma, Ireland. Those would be my top 5.
Great. Well, that's really all the questions I had for you today. I really think the most that I really got out from this was the purpose. You know, sometimes I forget about that, and I think it's good for listeners to think about as well, and know that could be something that comes up when they're traveling. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, that was big for me. So, Natasha, I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear more about your travels, and who knows, we might even get you on here again, depending how long you're out there.
Yep, and gonna do a quick plug. If you go to parttimeadvertiser.com, I teach a class called How to Start a 6-Figure Business for $3,000 or less, and it's all about running businesses online. So if you're really looking into doing that, there's a free course on there. There's a 3-part series. The first course is entirely free. Parttimeadvertiser.com, and you can learn the basics of how to find the right business to sell things online.
Yeah, and I think you should give your credentials as well, because Dallas isn't just selling or giving away any courses. Not from experience. He owns multiple businesses. So if you'd like to just talk about that.
Sure. Real quick, yeah, I teach that same course at a university. I've been teaching there 2 years, and I just wanted to give that to other people to have that experience. So, yeah, it's honestly free. So it's awesome. I've started 4 businesses, all for $3,000 or less. All of them have done 6 figures, at least 6 figures, and they've been pretty. I feel like they've been pretty successful. You know, each of them I could have lived abroad off of any of those businesses and lived comfortably. And so there's got to be a secret to it, right? And so I want to share with people, how do you do it? And also, so course 1, it's free. It's how do I find the right business? And then course 2 and 3 is how do I advertise on Google and how do I advertise on Facebook?
Yeah, because you do marketing, and he does his own marketing for his waxing salons that he owns, and as well as Fatboys Blobs.
Oh yeah, so just so I got fatboysblob.com, the world record holding water blob that I invented. SugarMe Wax, which I have 8 salons in Phoenix, and we're franchising it right now. It does about $250,000 a month in revenue. I've got a salon wax supplies. I sell wax online, and then I run a digital ads agency where we do online advertising. And I teach at a university. All of this, still 25 hours a week.
You're my hero. And also another reason why I started my in business as well. You know, when I met you, I was making like $12 an hour. So
it's been really fun to see how you've taken that and just run with it. It's been really cool to see that.
Thanks, Brigham. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I love you so much. Appreciate you.
I love you too. I love you too. Take care. Have a wonderful night, and thank you all for listening. Hope you got something out of it.